Welcome to episode 14 of the DevDecoder podcast, and I'm joined today with my favourite co-host.
Ha! Favourite.
Yeah, you are pretty much my only co-host.
No, Jack also does a bit of co-hosting.
They've been temporary standing co-hosts.
You're temporary. He looks hurt by what you've just said.
You know, there's a reasonable chance, of course, that you're going to be temporary at this rate.
That you need to apologise to Jack.
Hi Craig, I'm really happy with my new position as co-host of the DevDecoder podcast.
Yes, I'm glad we've managed to take this opportunity to encourage you and to give other people an opportunity to use the microphone.
It's nice to have some professionalism in here for once.
Hey! How many times have you purchased tickets for concerts or to go and see someone?
Honestly, never, because Vivian largely buys them for me.
So like using Ticketmaster and stuff?
I've heard of it, and I think I know what this story's going to be, because I've heard this.
So Ticketmaster are closing their resale sites.
Yes. Right, so I briefly saw this flash by, and I'm a bit skeptical that this is a little bit one of those marketing things, because they're closing their resale sites, but you will now be able to buy resale tickets on Ticketmaster directly.
For face value.
For face value, which is helpful because Ireland's about to introduce a law that says they have to do that anyway.
Yep.
And I think people are getting increasingly fed up. Touts just basically buying tickets in bulk and then just immediately selling them on massive marked up prices. And I think most people are getting really fed up with the industry. In particular, artists are also getting fed up with the industry because they're not seeing those markup prices. They're still only getting the original price, but it's putting off a lot of people from showing up to concerts. There's been lots of situations where concerts have been, sold out but half empty because people haven't actually bought the tickets.
Well, we went to Anthony Joshua last year. And I was in the queue and I was like 14,000 in the queue. Managed to get tickets, but within 5 minutes all the tickets were on StubHub for like double the price. And then we went and it was half empty.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of... I think legislators are now catching up to this, and I think Ticketmaster's jumping before pushed. But I don't think they're nice, sweet, innocent. I think they've been milking this and they've been benefiting out of it quite a bit themselves, and now they're trying to get the PR benefit of saying that it's changed, but I don't think they're the innocent party in this.
No, but it's still better for customers.
It is, but yeah, it'd be nice if they'd just done that right from the outset instead of being made to do it effectively. I mean, they are doing it now, so let's give them the benefit of the doubt, and let's assume that they're doing it for positive reasons. But I do notice that they're going to, and there are some benefits. They're going to make it clear when it's a resold ticket.
Yeah.
I'm a little confused in this because a lot of artists have actually, for a long time, actually said they're not going to honour resold tickets and they're going to put names on tickets and actually have ID required. And so a lot of artists have been trying to clamp down on this anyway. I think this is one of the reasons Ticketmaster's now starting to recognise it's on the wrong here, because I think people have been buying tickets, turning up to concerts and not being let in. A lot of times not even knowing it was a resold ticket.
Well, that's the problem, especially if I buy tickets and then suddenly I can't go and I want to sell those tickets on for face value, and then I can't do that because it's got my name on it.
I think this is the problem, that the non-transferability of tickets is itself causing legal issues for the people selling the tickets, because you're buying an asset and shouldn't you have a right to sell that asset on? So there is some complexity here, but I think that, unfortunately, because of the abuse of Ticketmaster, it's going to be increasingly common. It's probably too little too late. It's going to be increasingly common that you're once you bought a ticket, it's going to be non-redeemable, non-refundable and non-transferable, just like it is with airplane tickets and things like that. In many cases, it costs you a lot of money to transfer them. And it's just an opportunity then for the artist to make even more money off the back of what's really, come on, seriously, if I bought it and I want to sell it, I think there should be a returns policy on tickets, which says that if you're not going to use them and you can't use them, you can refund them, right? So you can have your money back for them, minus a booking fee, to be fair, but you can't sell it.
And I know some of them put like a limited number on tickets, like you can only buy 10, but that still doesn't stop people setting up bots and stuff, does it?
No, and none of those things have worked. I think genuinely what should happen is that you register the ID of the person who's got the ticket and you require that ID to use the ticket, but you give people the ability to return the ticket for a refund. And if they do that, minus a reasonable small fee for the administrative overhead of handling taking somebody back and putting somebody and reselling that ticket, with the danger, of course, that you're not going to get that. It's going to be harder to sell that ticket later on. In a holiday, in a lot of holidays, you can like cancel anytime up to a month before you go, and then there's a sliding window, isn't there? And within 24 hours it becomes non-refundable, that kind of thing. I think a similar thing on tickets is much more fair, that you basically say, okay, up to a certain window you get the full price back, and then it's same with train tickets, isn't it? Up to a certain point you can get 100% back, and then you get like 50% back, and then if it's on the day or anything, it's tough. I think that's fair and much more reasonable. Yeah, I think Ticketmaster, whether they've done this out of the goodness of their own hearts or because effectively they're now in a situation where they have to do it.
Not yet, they don't.
Well, you say that. I don't think it's Ireland passing a law that's making them do this. I think this is actually them losing sales now and people starting to not go to concerts and people just being fed up with the whole scene. So Ticketmaster is worried about losing share because customers are just really unhappy. And there's a huge cost over administering all that dissatisfied customer service. You got people writing and emailing and complaining. So I think that they're probably starting to see that the cost benefit isn't there anymore of having these kind of practices. So now they're starting to calm down.
Well, it's like with StubHub, so I'm not sure about Ticketmaster, but there's a lot of people.
Ticketmaster owns StubHub?
No, I don't.
I think they owned some of these sites.
They own Get Me In.
That's it, Get Me In, yeah.
And then there's another one. StubHub, I think it's eBay owned.
Yeah, but see, this is why, like with Get Me In and all the rest, this is why I'm much less inclined to give Ticketmaster the benefit of the doubt. Because they were owning the companies that were buying up the tickets themselves. It was really, really immoral for me. I found that deeply unethical.
Hi again, Craig.
Hi!
Hi. So last week we spoke about just the best place to start, full stop, in terms of development.
Yes.
I thought today we could elaborate on that a little bit and think what was the best place to start in terms of specific languages and things like that. So I started learning with Python, which I thought was really good because it enforces good indentation and formatting of your code and things like that, because otherwise it just doesn't compile and run.
That's what we call a white space significant language,
which is really good for me because it means that indenting my code is habit.
Yeah.
Whereas there are some people that haven't started with things like Python and they've got to actively force themselves to do it because they know they don't have to.
Yeah, it's funny. I mean, it's very much a style and preference choice. I don't personally like white space significant languages. Because I think it can be a little more confusing in one sense because it's not as clear to a new starter that the indentation matters.
Yeah.
And I prefer languages to be more discoverable. And what I mean by that is that they should be more intuitive. However, Python has become incredibly popular. It's driving a revolution in getting people into the industry. So it's clearly something that people are enjoying and stuff. In reality, I think the first thing is you've got to ask, one of the things I always say to new developers is that actually writing language and coding is not the important part of being a developer.
Yeah.
So the analogy I always use is that it's like we all read and write English and we send emails.
Yeah.
Okay, but being able to write an email and send an email doesn't make me an author.
Yeah.
And the difference between a coder and a developer is the difference between somebody who can read and write English or send emails and somebody who can publish a novel.
Yeah.
That ultimately the act of being able to tell a story is very different than the language you use to communicate that story.
Yeah, but to learn English and things, you do have exercises, for example, writing, creative writing pieces and things like that.
Absolutely. So as long as we start from a starting point that actually learning to code is really just about getting the techniques for how to express your ideas into language, but they're not actually the important part of being a coder. And so you will learn many languages as part of becoming a coder. Once you start with that point, then to get into, you need to first of all pick the most. You don't need to be too concerned about which language you start with because you're going to have to learn lots of languages because the languages aren't the important bit. So over your career, you're going to learn many languages. So you don't need to be too obsessive about picking a language. Pick a language, whichever one you find easiest to get into, based on which one's most readily available. You got friends that are programming that language, etc. So don't be worried that you're picking the wrong language.
Yeah, I started with Python because it's got a lot of ready-built science modules and I was doing my science degree.
And it's very popular in schools and stuff at the moment. And so do Python, right? Because that's where you're going to get it doesn't matter. I think people have concerns, well, if I learn Python, will I ever be taken seriously as a developer?
Yeah.
Well, no, you won't be taken seriously because of what language you've programmed in anyway. So it won't be the thing that matters. So just start with any language, whichever one's easiest for you to get into. Python's a good starting point. C-like language is a good starting point. All of the different types of languages are good starting points because what you're learning is just expressing ideas.
Yeah, they've all got positives and negatives. For example, I know C, you need to have your own memory storage for things like that. It's not automatically handled by the compiler.
Now, the second part of your question is how to get into a language. Well, you didn't really define who it is that you're asking the question of, because it's very different. If you're talking to someone who's never done any coding before, it's very different than when you say to someone like me, like, how do I get into a new language?
Yeah, you getting into a new language is mapping your knowledge onto the syntax they use.
Exactly. So I will get into a new language by actually, in some cases, if they've got a decent spec, I can very quickly skim a spec for the language and understand it and go, okay, that's that. The other way is I will ask myself, how do I do the following things in this language? So I have a tool set of paradigms and ideas and the way I solve problems. And I will say, how do I express that idea in this language? And often then I can see that idea expressed in that language, and then I can understand how that language works.
Yeah.
Whereas if you're starting from scratch, you don't necessarily have that initial set of ideas that you want to express.
Yeah.
However, what I would say is that's always a good starting point for trying to learn a language. So rather than, and this is even in the case of English, rather than just starting from after you've got beyond these are the words in the English language stuff, the best way to learn English is to use English. Is to tell a story.
Yeah.
You want to express yourself. The reason young people and the reason babies learn to speak is because they need to express themselves.
Yeah.
So in the same way, if you want to learn to code, you need to have an idea you want to express in code. And then ask yourself how to express that, and go and ask the questions, how do I express this idea in code?
Yeah.
That's the idea to learning a language. Don't start from a position of I just want to learn a language. Ask yourself, what is it I want to say in this language?
Yeah.
And that will then give you the building blocks and the starting point to go and discover how to express yourself in that language, and ultimately you should be able to code. It's really not the language that matters, it's the thought process and the ideas.
Which you've reinforced through learning other languages.
Exactly. And once you've worked in as many languages, you really do get the idea. There's so many different ways people write languages and create them. I get most excited when I see a language that's been written that is introducing a completely new paradigm or a completely new way of thinking.
Yeah.
And that's pretty rare, I'll be honest. A lot of the times
there's only so many that are going to be useful, and even though tech's still a relatively new industry compared to like agriculture and things, it's still had a lot of people thinking about it for decades.
I think our first languages were written in the 40s and 50s, most of the 50s, I think. So we're still in that kind of phase of being able to see new languages. But most of the new they're really just paradigm shift changing ideas. So the normal shortcuts have a way we used to do it in a much longer way. So even by the time it gets into a language implementing it, we often had that idea in a different language.
Yeah, you just have to implement it yourself instead of using the keyword that exists in the language.
It's a keyword that's just a shortcut for everything else.
I've got a new addition to the podcast.
Okay.
Fact of the podcast.
Oh, let's do a fact of the podcast.
I can't remember. Did you know jellyfish are 95% water, and if you leave them in the sun, they'll evaporate? You didn't know that, did you?
I did, but am I supposed to pretend I didn't?
No, you didn't know
But
it.
I totally did.
No, you didn't.
Yeah, I totally did.
You have to go, wow.
Wow.
So I'm here with Nick today. How are you doing, Nick?
Not very well. I'm in a lot of pain.
Is that why you sat so far back in your chair?
That and not wanting to get too close to you, really.
That makes a lot of sense. I wondered why everyone sat so far back. So, do you want to start by telling us a bit about your background? What you got a degree in, stuff like that?
Okay, cool. So, I was a classic nerd growing up, and I was one of those sort of in their bedroom recluses that was always into video games, which kind of led me to eventually do my degree that was computer games technology. I enjoyed it. It's not exactly what I'm doing now, obviously, but no, it was a good degree. And the best thing it did for me was got me into programming, and then knew going in that I really, really wanted to push for a placement year of some kind, because I'd heard they were just like a really, really good career move and getting experience and stuff, which was something that I always felt I was lacking. So I ended up looking for a placement, found web applications, and here I am today still.
So how did you get into programming? Did you do it as part of your course?
Yes, so it was part of the first year of my university degree. One of the 4 modules that we had that year was just straight programming. I'd done a little bit beforehand, messing around in like Visual Studio and stuff when I was in A-levels, but to be honest, I didn't really know what I was doing. and I didn't really have any sort of direction with it, so I just completely failed. But yeah, university came around, and programming year 1 at university was, I think, my best subject, actually.
So did you enjoy that more than sort of computer gaming technology? Was that the best part of it?
Yeah, it's kind of disappointing, to be honest.
Oh, God.
No, sorry. The programming isn't disappointing. What's kind of disappointing is that, like, I went and did this video games degree, and actually the bit that I enjoyed most about it wasn't the video games stuff.
Yeah.
Which wasn't what I expected at all going in. And that's not like bashing the video games course that I did or anything. It was a real good course. It's just I found that my passion was more towards the programming side of things than, say, the art side of things or the level design side of things or any of the gamification modules. They were all great. It's just programming was the bit that I enjoyed.
So what do you think it is about programming that you enjoyed so much?
For me, it started when it kind of came easier to me than I saw it coming to some people in my class, and I started looking at sort of why that was, and I found that I was able to like solve a lot of puzzles really quickly with it, and I enjoyed that sort of. It ended up just probably coincidentally being the unit that gave me a lot of feeling of early mastery. Like I was able to just complete things really quickly in the early stages, and I really enjoyed that, and it sort of just enforced this path for me that I ended up going down.
It's funny because everyone that we speak to, whenever we ask them what it is about programming, they always say the same thing, the problem solving part of it.
Oh yeah, like writing code is completely secondary. If I can solve a problem and make someone else write the code for it, that's fine. I don't care, as long as I get to solve the problem.
So you've also volunteered at our code clubs before to help younger people code. How was that?
It was great. I really enjoyed it when I used to, because so my mum is a primary school teacher, so I've always grown up in and around classrooms and stuff. And it was really good to be able to put some of the skills that I sort of learned growing up, watching her be a teacher, to use, to be able to help people and get people interested in this sort of stuff. It's really interesting the ways that it's structured nowadays to try and get people interested in it, because historically it's, I guess, like not one of the most picked up subjects. It's not like there are some subjects that are always going to get people like doing them, like maths and English and stuff, and especially younger kids I found didn't used to like being sat just at a computer trying to learn programming so much, and the way that loads of the code clubs and stuff are structured to make it not just sat learning programming, and it attracts the kids to it. It's really interesting.
I had nothing when I was younger, like code clubs, anything like that, nothing in school. Yeah. Which is weird, because then when we speak to people, they've always sort of maybe done a little bit of coding before they've gone to school or A-levels and like in the spare time, and I didn't know anything about it until like I came here. So how did you find it, only having done it as part of your course at uni, to then get a job?
I think I was lucky. That it was web apps I went to. I pretty much straight out say that when I did a placement year here, I started off like bottom of the barrel. I was completely, even of like the placement students that we took on that year, I was at least in the bottom two. And so I was really lucky that the company is the way that it is, and we had the people that we had, and like we've got a great team at web apps these days. Like we work with some great people. Mm-hmm. But even then, so I started 4 years ago now, something like that, as an IP. Even back then, the team was great, and I think without that, like if I'd gone to another company, I'd have probably just failed completely, because my technical knowledge was nowhere near the level that I thought it was. It was very much a case of I either learn here or I don't ever learn.
So would you say that the placement year was beneficial? Oh,
100%. So I've got a little brother kind of doing the same thing that I did now, and I've just told them straight up, if you don't take a placement year, you're an idiot. It's given the fact that what I ended up finding passion in wasn't exactly what my degree was intended for. I think without it, I'd have been quite lost. So for me personally, it became probably the most valuable part of my university experience. Now that's just because of the way it worked out for me. You know, like the degree might be more valuable for other people, but it's certainly way up there for anyone, I think.
And did your degree have a placement year as part of it, or?
Yeah, I deliberately went on to a degree course that had a sandwich year.
Okay.
So it was a sandwich course with 2 years, placement year, final year.
So what advice would you give to people that maybe done a little bit of coding but they're not sure whether it's the right career but they might have a passion?
I'd say give it a go. I'd say, well, it depends what stage they're at, but if they're at the stage where they're, I don't know, looking for further education or something, I'd say maybe don't go to like a university course fair, like open day, thinking I'm definitely going to do programming, but definitely visit the stalls. Definitely go and visit the computer science section of the open days, that sort of stuff. Talk to the people. I see too many people like walking around open days back when I used to help out with them at uni, and when I've gone with web apps and stuff to grad fairs. I see way too many people just walking around and just like maybe picking up a leaflet.
Yeah.
Like that doesn't work. Just go and talk to the people, because they're there because they're passionate about their subject and they're passionate about what they do. So use that resource and go and find out if you like, firstly, go and find out if you like the type of people that are part of that subject area. And if you do, ask them if they've got any recommendations or anything you can try. And you don't lose anything by just trying it. Like you might if you just jumped into a degree without knowing whether you were ready. But if you try something, less committing first, that's fine. Just give it a go wherever you can find like a code club or a hackathon or just some online resources. You don't lose anything by trying it, is what I'd say.
All right. Thank you, Nick.
Cheers.
So you're not that old, are you?
I'm very, very young, actually.
Yeah, okay. You're not that young, but you're not that old.
I'm pretty young.
When I was younger, one of the things that really captured my imagination pre-internet, so before the internet really took off, was when I saw my first fax machine.
Ooh.
Do you know what a fax machine is? Just about.
It was just in my time.
So the idea was that you could send pictures, you could scan a picture like a photocopier and send it over a telephone line to another fax machine that could then print out that picture. So it's a way of sending generally really low quality monochrome pictures. Now it's mostly used for scanning documents because of course text would go much better than like an actual picture. And you could send it over and it slowly send it and it'd take about a minute to print a page of A4, and it just slowly...
It makes that noise.
Yeah, and you could listen to it and stuff, and people have dedicated fax lines. You still see them, don't you, even now on like your phone has a space for a fax line and things. It turns out fax lines are still ubiquitous. I mean, businesses have fax machines. Very few people increasingly need to have an actual fax machine sat in their office. They can do it all electronically. There's a problem here, though, because fax machines have literally no security in them. These are like pre-internet days.
Yeah.
And so increasingly they're finding that people are using fax gateways and fax machines as ways of accessing corporate networks.
What do you mean?
Well, because the old fax machines, you just send data and image data in a completely unencrypted form. It's just really simple. It's a really simple protocol. It's basically, this is how dark the pixel is, and here's the next pixel, and here's the next pixel. It's very unencrypted. It's very easily hacked, but that's fine when you're just sending it to something that all it can do is print out an image. But now when your fax machine's actually one of these super duper Toshiba.
Super duper.
And I don't know if Toshiba's got any, I'm not saying any particular brand has these particular vulnerabilities. I'm not going to get sued by them. But depending on your Mr. Generic printer, if it's one of these super connected ones that's also a internet gateway and a fax gateway and a
like a super duper one,
yes, then of course it's potentially a vector for attack. So it's something that hackers can use to get into your network via your fax line, and then hook in through various hacks to manage to get to onto your network.
I just don't understand how all this stuff works.
It's just like
at all.
Did you ever see that episode of NCIS? Do you know what NCIS is?
Yeah, I know what it is.
So there's an episode there. You remember there's that lady that get dresses like a goth and she's super smart on computers.
Nope.
There's one episode there where they're trying to hack the machine and both of them are typing on the same keyboard. So there's like 4 hands typing on the same keyboard. It's probably the most self-knowing hacker joke of all time because it's stupid. You can't have 2 people typing on the same keyboard.
Okay.
Because how does he know which key presses which hand?
What do you mean?
Well, like if you were typing an email on your keyboard,
yeah,
and I came over and also started typing my email on a keyboard,
yeah,
how could the computer know which key presses were your key presses and which were mine? It doesn't. It's just going to mix all those key presses
What if you're
together.
writing the same email? What if you're both working on the same email?
But if we're both just typing at the same time, then we're going to have to interleave our letters. That's pretty talented, isn't it?
What if I take the left-hand side of the keyboard and you take the right-hand side of the keyboard?
You're going to struggle to type the word typewriter. Typewriter, famously, is all the letters can be typed on the top row of the word type of the typewriter.
Is there something that uses up every single letter of the alphabet? What's it called?
The alphabet.
No, the something fox jumps over the lazy dog.
Oh, the quick brown fox jumps over the lazy brown fox.
Yeah, that uses up every letter,
fox.
doesn't it?
Yeah. Speaking of quick foxes and stuff, I once had a racing snail.
No, you didn't.
I did.
No, you didn't.
I thought, you know what? I can make this faster if I take the shell off the top of it. Unfortunately, it just made it more sluggish. The problem is, right, now she just doesn't laugh at all my jokes. Is that
because you've told me the joke 2 days ago and I said save it for the podcast and you went, no, I want to tell you now.
So I have saved it for the podcast. You've got to react to like you did when I first told you the joke.
So you got a different outro this week, so I wonder if you could tell the difference.
I can't tell the difference.
You can't tell the difference?
What's changed? Is it the set?
What could it be? The lights, the cameras, the microphone.
I can't put a finger on it, Rebecca. What is
it's
it?
you! It's you! You do look very similar to Craig, though. You're around the same age.
Yeah. We went to school together.
Did you?
Yeah.
Did you?
Yeah.
So Ian's joined me because Craig is on annual leave. He's definitely not lined up to be a new co-host because he doesn't know how to actually speak.
I've not got it in me. I can't talk to people. Make sure you follow us on Twitter, Facebook and Instagram at DevDecoder. You can get us on iTunes, Podbean and devdecoder.com.
Maybe you could be a new co-host.
Well.
See you soon.
Bye.